Olá pessoal, sejam todos muito bem-vindos e bem-vindas a mais um conteúdo do nosso Summit Firjan e Festival Futuros Possíveis 2020. Se você já está acompanhando a gente durante o dia, eu sou a Karen de Souza, sou jornalista, estou por aqui com vocês. E se você chegou por agora, muito obrigada por escolher estar com a gente. O evento já trouxe uma série de conteúdos muito importantes, relevantes, e agora a gente apresenta mais um, viu? O nosso foco de hoje é a liderança para o futuro. A gente acabou de sair de uma prática de mindfulness que foi preciosa. Eu tive a oportunidade de fazer também, a gente teve uma pausa aqui também e foi maravilhoso. E eu espero que vocês tenham curtido, até porque esse programa que foi criado no Google, em breve vai ser incorporado no portfólio da Firjan. Então você vai poder contar com essa prática mais tempo, assim, com mais vezes também. Então, espero que você aproveite, tenha curtido e que se torne mesmo uma prática constante para você. Gente, a nossa próxima palestra vai ser em inglês novamente, então você que precisa de tradução simultânea, fique tranquilo, fique tranquila, basta apertar aqui no botãozinho que vai aparecer em seguida e a tradução simultânea vai começar para você, tá bom? Pessoal, existe um mito grande de que para inovar é necessário ter muitos recursos. E aí, para quebrar esse mito, a gente vai ouvir agora o Navi Radjou, que é autor do livro Economia Frugal, professor na Escola de Negócios da Universidade de Cambridge e palestrante TED Global. Hello, Navi. Welcome.
Hello, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Can I start now?
Yes, please. Start now.
Okay.
We are curious.
Great. Okay, very good, very good. So I'm so delighted to discuss with you about a subject that I've been studying for the past 12 years now, called Jugaad Innovation, which is really the art of transforming adversity into opportunity. This is something I experienced very early in my childhood. I grew up in a city called Pondicherry in southern India. In the 70s, there was a major drought. So me and my brothers will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to fill buckets with water. And we use that rest of the day to cook and clean ourselves. So I learned very early on in my life that we need to appreciate and value and cherish scarce resources like water and learn to do better with less. I also learned something very valuable as a life lesson because I grew up in urban slum, and small urban slum, and all my friends, most of them were poor kids, like a favela in a way. And they didn't have any clothes on them. They didn't have a lot of material resources, but they had a big smile, which is priceless. So I learned early on that someone who has less is not a lesser being. As a matter of fact, when you put a limitation on what you have, you remove the limitation on your creativity. And you see in this example, for instance, this kid who plays cricket, which is the national sport in India, and he's protecting his knees with a makeshift, gear made from cardboard. So in other words, less can be sometimes and often more. Less is more. And this actually led me to, as I said, spend the last 15 years as a researcher to really study the entrepreneurs in emerging markets like India, China, Africa, and Brazil. We did study several examples in Brazil as well of entrepreneurs who are able to do more and better with less. And these are entrepreneurs who are able to, like alchemists, they can reframe resource scarcity as a big innovation opportunity. For instance, this is Mansukh Prajapati. He is a potter by training, and he has created this fridge made entirely of clay that can keep fruits and vegetables fresh for 5 days, and it doesn't consume any electricity. Likewise, today we have millions of babies that are born prematurely. And in the West, like America, we keep the babies in an incubator. An incubator costs about $20,000 and requires electricity, which is not often available in developing countries. So Jane Chen and 5 other graduates from Stanford University came up with this very clever solution, which is a baby warmer, as you can see here. And it uses a material inside that you can place on a heating pad and put it back in this incubator. And you can keep the baby at constant temperature for 6 hours straight. And this ingenious solution cost only $200, which is 1% of the cost of incubator, and it doesn't require electricity. And this simple solution has saved the lives of 300,000 babies. So you can see how with very limited resources and despite scarcity of resources, you can create a lot of value for your local community. And you can apply the same thinking to science, advanced technologies also. For instance, in September 2015, there was a spacecraft sent by NASA that entered into Mars orbit called MAVEN. And this spacecraft was developed for $671 million, and it took NASA 5 years to build this project. But at the same time, in September 2015, another spacecraft launched by India called Mangalyaan also entered the orbit of Mars. And this project was developed for only $74 million, 10% of the cost of NASA. Why? Because the Indian Space Agency did a lot of simulation using computer rather than building physical prototypes. Now, you should know that what the NASA spends in 1 month is the annual budget of the Indian Space Agency. As I said earlier, so when you put a limitation on resources, right, you remove the limitation on human creativity. And that's how Indian Space Agency is able to even explore space with limited budget. And we are seeing that right now. Indian scientists have come up with a paper strip test for COVID-19 for just €6. And now, as we speak, it's being distributed across India. Just so you know, in America, a COVID test, if you want to get results the same day, it costs you anywhere between $100 and $200, okay? This is in America, in Manhattan, okay, New York. So compared to that, as you can see, it's definitely faster, better, cheaper, all right? And so if you look at all these ingenious solutions, they go from more low-tech solutions developed in a bottom-up, user-driven way, and all the way to the high-tech solutions which are developed in a top-down, R&D-driven way. But what's common across all these solutions is it a method? Is it like a secret method, right, that these entrepreneurs use to create these solutions? The answer is no. There is no secret method. Instead, all these entrepreneurs have a very unique mindset, and that mindset is what we call jugaad. Jugaad is a Hindi word from India. It means the ingenious ability to improvise an effective solution in a difficult context using limited resources. Jugaad is universal. We have other similar terms like système D in France, kanju in Africa. I know in Brazil you call it gambiarra, and then in America we call it hustle. But for me, the best embodiment of this mindset is MacGyver, right? The TV action hero, who, unlike James Bond, simply uses his Swiss Army knife to pull himself out of trouble. And so that is really what Jugaad is about. It's about resilience, it's about creativity, and it's about being frugal and resourceful. And I've written a book with my co-authors, published in English on the left side, and I'm proud to say it has been published in Brazil in Portuguese by Elsevier, Inovação do Improviso, I guess it's called. You can take a look at that. But what I will do today is to give you a summary of this book by explaining the 3 major attributes of this mindset that you can develop as well. The first is about being frugal. The second is about being what I call resilient plus. It's about being agile and also very creative and resilient. The third attribute is about being inclusive. So let's begin with the first attribute, which is about being frugal. So being frugal is about not complaining that I don't have something, right? But identify, celebrate, make the most of what you already have. So it's again being very resourceful. For instance, this year and next year with the recession, with COVID-19, many tangible resources may get scarce for you as professionals. Capital, energy, water, new technology, these are resources that are going to be scarce in coming years. But instead of complaining about that, we need to leverage existing resources we have, such as human ingenuity, empathy, resilience, our intellectual capital in your company, the social capital in our communities, our psychological capital, like resilience, as I said, but also existing technology data. And Brazil is famous for diversity of talent. That also is an asset, an important resource that can be used to create more value. And here I'm going to give you quickly some examples of how to apply this frugal thinking, this frugal mindset. For instance, instead of saying, oh my God, we don't have enough water in the coming years, we can look around, like Brazil, like India, right? It's a tropical country, a lot of humidity. So a startup in Israel has come up with a technology that transforms humidity into drinkable water. And they can generate, hundreds of liters of water just by extracting water from the air, humid air, okay? Or you can say, we don't have electricity. Oh, but we have ambient light. How do we transform light into electricity? That's what this company called Dracula Technologies is doing. It's a French startup that has created a technology which prints photovoltaic cells, tiny cells that you can integrate into your everyday objects like your bag, and it will charge your phone, okay? So the idea is that there are 50 billion objects that are going to be connected to the internet. It's called the Internet of Things. And instead of using batteries to power these objects, what if these objects can generate their own energy, right? Using this kind of technology. So this is a very jugaad way of transforming a problem into an opportunity, okay? Likewise, during this pandemic, there was a shortage of ventilators. So some companies said, oh, we need to go find ventilators. But other companies said, oh, we have existing technologies that we could adapt, repurpose to make use as ventilators. For instance, Dyson, a company that makes vacuum cleaners, they adapted the digital motor in their vacuum cleaner, as you can see on the left, to make a ventilator. And they produced 10,000 ventilators to be used by patients in England and the rest of the world. Likewise, you might say, instead of looking for new data, why don't we reuse existing data to create more value? This is what a startup called AlgoSurg is doing. What they do is they automatically, using algorithms of artificial intelligence, they convert automatically 2D images from X-ray machines automatically into 3D images. This means you don't need a CT scanner or MRI device. And this is very powerful because, small towns in India, they don't have the money to buy a CT scanner. So the solution enables, for example, orthopedic surgeons people who have to replace hips or knees, they can do the simulation first on the computer before they can make the actual surgery. Okay, so this is a great way to make sure surgery of hips or knee replacement goes well without having to invest in a CT scanner or MRI machine. So this is another way to think about, right? How can we create more value from existing data that you have? Because data is the oil of the 21st century. So we need to find a way to do better with less. And that actually is the subtitle of my book, How to Do Better with Less, which is called Frugal Innovation. It's a book that was published in 2015 by The Economist. And frugal innovation is really about finding clever ways to create more value and values using fewer resources. What we mean by value is more economic value and more social value and ecological value while reducing use of scarce resources like capital, energy, and time. So that's about frugal, being frugal in terms of the mindset. The second aspect of Jugaad is being resilient plus. So resilient, right? It's about being strong, and when you face adversity, and you resilient means that if you receive a shock, you come back, right? You get back to your initial form. Resilient plus is going one step further, right? It's about transforming adversity. So you transform the problem into a solution, and you transform adversity into opportunity. For instance, Kanak Das is an entrepreneur in India, and he was riding his bicycle in his village. Unfortunately, the roads had a lot of potholes, bumps that slowed him down. Instead of complaining about it, he came up with a clever idea, which is to create a device that he attached to his bicycle. And what it does is that it transforms the bumps into acceleration energy. So the more bumps in the road, the faster the bike rides, okay? So that's a way of, as I said, like an alchemist, how can you transform the problem into a solution? That is what I mean by resilient plus. And similarly, there is a company in China called Haier. They make white goods, we call them, like refrigerator, washing machines, etc. And there was one time when there was a farmer in a village in China complained that his washing machine gets clogged. So when the technician went to take a look, he found that the farmer was using the washing machine to wash potatoes, freshly harvested potatoes. Instead of complaining, they said, oh, this is an opportunity for us, because he's not the only guy who is trying to wash potatoes with the washing machine, right? So how do we come up with a better washing machine that can also wash potatoes? And they did launch such a washing machine, and it became a bestseller in China. So this Resilient Plus is really about asking the question, why not? Why not create a product that meets, a customer need that we did not anticipate, okay? So likewise, this question, why not, is important because, we are entering a world where everything is unpredictable. So we should, ask ourselves, why not do something differently? And that's what a doctor in Italy, as you know, Italy was one of the first countries in Europe, right, that got affected by COVID-19. So when there was a big pandemic in Italy in March this year, a doctor asked himself the question, why not adapt a Decathlon scuba diving mask into a ventilator, because there was a shortage of ventilator. So he came up with this idea, working with the designer in Italy, to 3D print using a 3D printer. They create a component that once put into the scuba diving mask can be used as a respirator. And they made the component open source, and 10,000 people downloaded it. That means that thousands of lives have been saved thanks to this very ingenious solution. So I always ask the question, why not do something differently? And Renault is a car company that also asked the question, right? Why not make a 5,000 euro car? This was in 2004 when people thought they were crazy, and they launched this car called Logan. And today they have a whole product line called Dacia, which contributes to over 40% of the revenues. And in 2015, they asked themselves, why not launch a car even cheaper? And in India, they launched a car called Quid for 3,500 euros and using 3 times less R&D spending. And using the same platform as this car, last year in China, they launched the 8,000 euro electric car as well. So again, right, this is a company that is willing to challenge, the existing status quo and push the boundaries of innovation. So finally, the third aspect of this Jugaad mindset is about being all-inclusive. So why this is important? Well, it's important because you know that I am in New York and I'm also Indian and I'm addressing you in Brazil. The fact is that if you look at the distribution of wealth, there are about 500 million people in the world, right? Adults, consumers, who earn above $100,000. Remaining 4.5 or 4.6 billion customers earn, as you can see, less than $100,000. And 3.5 billion people, as you can see, earn less than $10,000. So if you're doing innovation that only serves the needs of the people at the top of the pyramid, that would be what I call very elitist innovation. It only benefits 10% of humanity. What would be more interesting is if we can create solutions that benefit the 90% of the population, right? And that would be inclusive innovation. So you need to create a mindset that is inclusive to serve the needs of the people, not only at the top of the pyramid, but the people in the middle and in the bottom, big bottom of the pyramid. And that means that companies should overcome what I call the pharaoh complex. Like a pharaoh in a pyramid, you are sitting at the top of the pyramid and you are saying, come get my great shiny product, right? Which is very expensive. In a recession right now, you cannot do that. So you need to come down with great humility to meet the customers where they are right now. And many customers, including America, are struggling financially. So you need to adapt your product to make sure that everybody can benefit from your solution. Like Harish Hande, who has created a very clever business model in India to bring solar energy to the poorest people in the remotest villages in India. And the idea is that instead of having them pay monthly, every month, for his service, they pay every day. So they pay only when they need electricity. Some days they pay, some days they don't pay. It doesn't matter. But the pricing is variable because poor people, their income is also variable. So the solution, business model, has to adapt to meet the requirements of even the poor people. Okay? And I think this is the kind of inclusive innovation and inclusive business models and inclusive thinking we need to address global poverty. And similarly, in China, we are seeing something amazing where, because we cannot ask people to come to hospitals, the hospital has to come to the people. How we do that? Well, this is the power of telemedicine. Right? You heard about that, right? So basically in China, the population is aging very quickly. So what they have come up with is a telemedicine technology platform where doctors can remotely consult patients in villages. And this solution was very useful during, as you know, China was the first country, right, affected by COVID. So they were able to use this remote, telemedicine platform to connect experts like pulmonologists who are experts in lung with COVID patients who may be in a remote village, for example, okay? And that's how they were able to contain very quickly, right, this pandemic better than even Western countries. And today, many Chinese patients do consultations with the doctors using, like instant messaging, video instant messaging, right? So China is way, way ahead compared to even America when it comes to using mobile phones to do consultation and get advice from doctors. And finally, inclusive innovation is not just for poor countries. It's also for rich countries. Why? Because even before COVID, 22% of the European population was facing poverty. And do you know that 65% Americans don't have $500 in savings in case of emergency, right? So we need to create inclusive solutions even for rich countries. And this is an example I will conclude with, is in France, this is 4 entrepreneurs who created a company called Compte Nickel, which offers banking services without the bank. Oh, how do they do that? Well, instead of creating branches, right, bank branches in different neighborhoods and cities, they use, the mom and pop stores, small stores, that you find in your neighborhood. And basically you walk into any of the stores and there are 5,500 of them across France. And in 5 minutes, you can activate a banking account and you get an international debit card that you can use anywhere around the world. And you do all the transactions on your phone, on your tablet, and you pay only a flat fee of 20 euros each year. And this solution literally exploded in the last 7 years. And today they have almost 2 million clients in France, which is unbelievable. And 75% of their customers are middle-class people like us who don't want to pay huge banking fees and prefer to use this frugal solution. So in summary, I would say that as we enter very difficult times ahead with the pandemic, with the recession, we need to find a way to transform adversity in opportunity and do more and better with less. And this is where I think the Jugaad mindset will enable you to be more frugal, more resilient and agile, and be more inclusive in the way you do business and create innovation. And this crisis, this global recession, I think it's a great time to rethink our business model and particularly rethink our mindset and be more resourceful. And as I said, instead of complaining and worrying about the lack of tangible resources like capital, people, and technology, let's figure out a way to reuse and make the most of existing resources, whether it's human resources or social resources or the diversity of our population. So that's what I want to leave you with as a kind of more optimistic message. And I want to end here my presentation and transition to the Q&A portion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy your content right now, and I think that we have one Q&A, one question for you. I am receiving here right now, and I will read for you. Just a minute. Ana Maria Isabel, she asks how to convince that Jugaad mindset is worth it.
Is worth it, right?
Yes.
Is that what? Yeah. Well, I mean, the way to convince is that Um, in our book, the way we explained is that this book was written 8 years ago, and today it's even more relevant than before, because the way we introduce Jugaad is first by saying what's wrong with the existing system, right? So we said the existing system has three major problems, and these are the fact that they use a lot of resources, right? It's very expensive, right, to maintain a system. For instance, big companies in the world spend every year $800 billion in research and development, in innovation, right? That's a lot of money. And in a recession, we don't have money. Right? So that means that we have to figure out a way to be more frugal. Second problem is that the existing systems, government systems, corporate systems, are too rigid. They are not flexible. And that's what we see right now in the pandemic, right? Look at what happened in America, right? Very rich country, but they couldn't adapt. They couldn't be flexible, right, to deal with this unexpected problem, which is the pandemic. So the existing corporate systems, government systems, lack agility. They are not resilient. So that's why I talked about the second attribute, remember? Resilience. And then the third big problem with the existing system is that I lived in Silicon Valley for 13 years. So a lot of innovation coming out from Silicon Valley, right? Like an iPhone. Well, you know, this only 10% of the world population can afford this. But as I said, 167 million Americans, that's half the population, is today facing financial difficulties, okay? So that means that even America, we have to figure out a way to make products and services more affordable to people. So I would say that, you know, these are the three main reasons where we need Jugaad, because the existing system uses a lot of resources, it's wasteful, it is not flexible, and it is definitely not inclusive. And you see in America, right, facing so much inequality, right? So that's why we need a new system like this Jugaad mindset to create solutions that will be affordable and more accessible to everyone.
Do you think that it's important to all the society, everyone, to compromise to fight against this inequality?
What do you mean by compromise? Just curious.
Do you think that people may have to think about the other people, and not thinking about profits, not thinking about to become richer, but to really fight against the inequality?
Yes, absolutely. We have to essentially have a sense of solidarity, right? We have to think about as society. And America, you're right, is a problem because we are a capitalistic society. Yes. So everybody thinks for himself. That was the case until, 10 years ago, right? But now what you see is with the young people, they are more socially conscious, right? So as consumers, they want to buy from brands that are socially conscious. As employees, they want to work for companies that are socially conscious. So we are beginning to see a big change in the values, of the young people. The population is changing very quickly. So I'm not worried about the future, because I think young people are going to force companies and governments to reduce inequality, okay? Otherwise, they will say, we will not buy your products, we will not come work for your companies, and we will not vote for you, right, as politicians as well. But then there is something else we have to tell here. Remember the example of this company in France that offers the banking services, right? Well, the point is that there are ways to create frugal solutions. The poor people basically are willing to pay. Remember the solar energy, that is brought to the villages, right? It's not free, right? It's not, actually poor people don't want to receive anything for free. They hate that, right? They want to pay a minimum because they feel that they're respected, you know, as a customer. And that means that there are profitable business models, right? There is a famous management thinker, Sikar Prahlad, came up with this concept called the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, right? He was the first to show that, you know, if big companies can come up with the right products and services for the poor people, they can also make money, right? Yeah. So it's actually profitable to serve poor people. It's just that we need a different thinking. And that's why I never liked the idea of, you know, giving. I grew up in that, right? I mean, we received free food and free. I hate that. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, even if I'm poor, which I was, and you know, whenever I'm struggling financially, I want to figure out a way, you know, how can I buy something which is affordable rather than receiving it, you know, for free. So, yeah.
Thank you, Navi. Your content was very nice. Thank you so much for sharing with us. You brought so many examples and you inspired us. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Goodbye.
Muito obrigado.
De nada. Pessoal, muito obrigada também por estarem com a gente. Espero que vocês tenham curtido bastante esse nosso conteúdo. E a gente ainda tem mais coisas por aí, viu? Então, por favor, a gente vai encerrar esse link, mas, por favor, entre lá no nosso site e acesse o nosso próximo conteúdo. Em breve a gente vai deixar lá para vocês, tá? Daqui mais ou menos 30 segundos, 1 minutinho. Até mais!